So anyway, guys, we start out on the wild card, grab our wild card. We start out on Soldier, grab our wild card, and just quickly rush into Cabalist. Because Cabalist is insane. Every build should have this, right? We're talking about every time you inflict an element, it'll be 2 stacks, extra 2 stacks. So you're inflicting 3 is +2. Now you come up here so that way you can inflict 1 more element. That means that instead of inflicting just 1 type of element, you can inflict 2, because normally you only inflict 1 type of element with each hit. Now you can inflict 2. Now we come over here, we grab Immortal Offering. That way, whenever you kill an enemy with any kind of ailment, it doesn't have to be 5 stacks, right? If they have an ailment, it'll give you 1 stack of damage for that type of damage, and it stacks up to 5, which means 25% damage. And between the 2 types of ailment, you'll have 50% damage easily for those 2 types of ailments, whatever it is. You know, Bleeding Edge, for example, Bleeding Edge, you'll have 25% rend damage plus 5% of whatever else kind of damage you have that you set up for, like Toxic. In my example, for me, I have ether damage, so it'll give me, you know, 25% more ether damage. You want to grab Power of the First Man, because it'll make sure that every time you inflict ailments, whatever amount of ailments you're inflicting will be multiplied by 2. So we're already inflicting 3, right? So this will make sure that we inflict 6. Every time we hit, it'll be 6 elements, 6 stacks of however many we can have. By default, you can inflict 10 stacks, but since we have these 2 points here, we can inflict 20, right? So every time we'll inflict 6. And we're gonna get to this at some point, but you see we have another 5 here, so we can actually inflict up to 30 stacks of elements, and every time we inflict 1, it'll be 6 at a time. Now, as a rage user, I picked up Furious Appetite. A lot of people don't pick it up, but the reason I picked it up is, you know, I'm already above level 180 floor, and if I have any point in time where my rage decides to start to regenerate into willpower, that's a problem for me. And since I don't use any normal attacks, the only attacks that I use to recharge is like Shout and Wings of Ishmir. I might spend quite a bit of time, enough time using my rage to start regenerating into willpower. Not a one that's happened. So in order to stop that, I picked that up. As we're heading down, we're gonna pick up Bestial Frenzy. That's just 4% more damage for every enemy that's around you. And you know, these high levels, you might jump into a pack of enemy, there's like 7 enemies times 4%. There you go, you have a bunch of damage for no reason. Then you come over here, this node is stupid, it's really low damage, tiny amount of damage that you get, but you pick it up so that you can get 35 rage whenever you kill anything. That's why you pick this up. We come over here, which Time Cannot Heal. It's very strong, but only if you're actually doing ether damage as one of your top 2 types of damage. For example, for me, I'm using rend damage and ether damage, so I'm putting bleeds and stasis on the target so I can make use of this. If you're not using ether damage, then don't pick this up. Then an extra 20% damage for the effects of this. All this will do is that every hit I'm doing will happen again 1.5 seconds later and have an extra 20% damage. So since I'm focusing more on my actual solid damage, not the ailment damage, this comes in handy big time. Then we come over here just because everybody needs to come here. Like right now, Cabalist and Time Weaver are 2 classes that are way too powerful for any class to ignore. If you're trying to do damage, you have to go into elements because this bonus is too strong. And then you have to come into Time Weaver because you have to pick up another 10 stacks of elements. That's just how the game is right now. And we pick up Dark Juncture because this is one of the main defenses we have. It'll make it so that we only take 40% of a hit, and then the other 60% happens 1 second after. This will pretty much avoid us getting one-shotted, right? Because it's very rare that you're gonna get like so many hits at the same time that you're gonna get killed. Like 90% of the time you're gonna be safe just because of this thing right here. if you can heal fast enough, which we can. Now we keep going down. We're gonna grab Virtual Stance. This is more damage right here. We'll lose, it says we'll lose 25% of your resistances. That's actually such a tiny number that doesn't even register when you go into your stats sheet. You might lose 1 or 2% resist defenses just because of this 1 or 2%. That's it, doesn't even register. So don't even think about it. You know, you got your double damage right here. You pick up the one behind it for another 5%. You don't, this is not even a big deal. Like if you need this point somewhere else, don't pick it up. Just pick the 10% and move on. I picked it up because I have the point. You know, I'm level 77. I got the point. I put it in there. 15% double damage on all damage that you do. Not ailments, but everything else. You have 50% chance to do double damage. Your crits, everything. Now, I picked this up. You know, 25% extra damage to enemies with impaired movement. It's right on the way. Just 1 point to the side. Since we're doing stasis, what stasis does is slow down your targets. It doesn't do anything else. It just slows down their movement, their attacks and whatnot, right? So that means they are slowed in stasis, right? It says slowed in stasis, stunned or frozen, because slowed can actually be done with other things. Like for example, this over here, enemies are slowed by 20% for 2 seconds when they are within radius of this node. So that's an example of, that's why it says separate slowed and in stasis. But in stasis just causes slow as well. It has its own percentages in the stats sheet. Now, coming down this way, we picked up this node for absolutely no reason. I gotta reset it. That's not supposed to be there. That does 25% damage by being 6 meters away from all enemies. That was just an accident. We'll delete that. We'll reset the roll and remove that point. I shouldn't be there. And then we come over here to grab some rage, because we use skills so often that even with all the rage reduction cost that we have, rage cost reduction that we have, we still need a lot of rage. So we picked up all these 400 rage and 150 over here. Is gonna be picked up once we reset and move this point from here to there. And if you don't have it, you know, that's something you eventually want to get. On the side over here, this point will come very obvious. You know, merciless lethality. You lose 30% of damage, but you gain 100% critical hit damage. I mean, if you're planning to do any amount of critical hits, you want to pick up this node. That's just how the game is. Another one of those things. You just gotta do it, right? Now we come up over here, 25% damage when only one enemy is near you. That rarely happens, you know, but those moments where you're fighting like a boss at the end of a floor or something, and it's just you and the boss, you know, you got an extra 25% damage. So it's a point, it's right there, just off to the side, 1 point. If you don't have it to put it there, just leave that for later and keep moving. This is another point that you can leave for later. What this does is you can leave this for when you have close to 100% block. What this does is every time you block, it'll rebuke with 2 stacks of weakness. 2 stacks of weakness that, as we know, are multiplied into 4 stacks because of this little node over here. So every time I block, it'll do 4 stacks, and because I picked this one up, which is increases the weakness stack by 1, it'll be 3, and because of this, it'll be 6 stacks of weakness every time I block, which means that I'm also gonna have a sacred damage boost. So that's because of Immortal Offering. Now, we move over here, we grab Salvatory Anchor. What do you grab Salvatory Anchor? This is a big defensive node. It'll make your armor piece, your chest armor piece, super strong. It doesn't matter whichever one it is, whether it's life or whatever, it'll give it the boost that it says right there. It's a huge node, right? And then the one behind it does the same thing but for your helmet. All right, let's look at a quick example here, right? I have 62,000 health and my resistances are at 87, 80, 80, right? I take that off and it goes down by, how much life was that? 20,000 life. It goes down by 20,000 life and by just over 1,000 of each resistance type from this chest piece, right? So that's a huge note. When you're starting the game, you might want to use a heavy chest piece that has as much resistance as you can. You know, later on you might want to swap into something like this with more life, but early on you're probably better off with a heavy chest piece. And then the same thing, you know, with the helmet. In my case, I have one with resistances, 87, 80, 80. I take it off, and it goes down by over 1,000, even more than the helmet. That's than the chest piece, because it has a lot more resistances. It's only resistances, right? And then we move up here. This not everybody picks up this node. It makes you slow, but it also gives you a shit ton of damage. Okay, 60% damage when it's a full stacks, and you are almost at full stacks in this build. Okay, I'll explain why later, right? You will be a full stacks almost at all times, which means that you have 60% damage increase at pretty much all times. Then you come back here, it gives you even more resistances, right? 100% increased resistances, not just a little bit, it's 100%, and it gives you 1% health regen, which doesn't even matter. It's negligible. It makes your health regen be a little bit higher, but it's a negligible number. It should be higher than that. I don't know why it's 800. Okay, I guess it's 127. It's a negligible number. We don't even use that or think about it or anything, right? Anyways, that's the build in the tree. We're gonna go over the gear right now, then the skills. Before we jump into the gear, the stats, guys. The only stats that I put in on this build is toughness, or ferocity and wisdom comes from the gear. We don't focus agility in any way, since we're just throwing out bleeding edge like crazy. We don't really need to worry about agility at all, but whatever we have is because it just happened to be on some of the gear. And ferocity and wisdom all coming from the gear. We have 54% crit chance, 32% attack speed is all from the gear, 33% let's go over here actually, 29, 40% on the bleed, 29. I'll explain why we have so much bleed chance. Stasis is also a little bit higher because that's one of our main ones. Okay, there must be occult chance in the gear. So the reason that bleed is so high, right? Since this is our main damage from bleeding edge, I put in bleed chance score on rend damage on the jewelry, right? 35%, 35%, and 35%. That's why we have so much, right? When it comes to jewelry, what we're looking for is attack, like flat attack. It doesn't even matter what the flat attack is for, as long as it got a flat attack, you want it. And crit damage on the rings, you want that crit damage. You see I got plus 30% critical hit damage, you want that crit damage. The other ring, they're not even that amazing, but they got that critical hit damage. You want that critical hit damage. That's 60% critical hit damage just from those two. I got a total of 410% critical hit damage, right? I'm not reading chat right now. What's going on? Do you think this build could be adapted to work with two-handed at high expeditions? Absolutely. And that's something that we're gonna get into in a little bit. On my amulet, I do have the flat damage, you know, physical damage, 25, 28. And that's, oh, there you go, 37% occult status ailment chance. That's why the stasis and everything is at 32%. And there's some critical hit chance in there too. But in here, that 37% all rest, the flat damage, and the crit chance is what matters. The three top rolls there. You see how our resistance are at 87, 80, 80. If I take that off, it actually goes down quite a bit. So those percentages on accessories and stuff, that is actually quite a bit of resistances. It just so happens that I got that. It's a coincidence. I didn't like aim for it. I just happened to get it. I'm like, wow, this is so damn good, you know? Yeah, the block chance right now is 100%. We don't have a lot of block efficiency right now. We're looking towards raising it. The way we got the block is our shield, chest, and helmet sockets are all filled with tier 12. No, actually, pants, chest, and helmet are all filled with tier 12. What do you call this? Alexandrite gems, which is this one right here. Eternal Alexandrite tier 12. It gives 10% block chance. The helmet has a 10% efficiency instead of the block chance, because I already had 100% block. Sorry, I already had 100% block, so I went for the efficiency on that. We got the chest 30%, pants 10%, 9%. Oh, I gotta upgrade one of those. The shield has crit chance, which is also Alexandrite. Okay, guys, Alexandrite is the gem. It's our gem. We use this on all the armor. Okay. Critical hit chance for attack. Support number 1. 3 support number 1s on the shield. 35% attack critical hit chance, right? That's where a lot of our crit chance comes from. We have 54%. If I take off that shield, it goes up to 46. It goes down to 46. That's 9%, 8% crit chance right there, just on the shield. The shoulders, rage and willpower cost reduction is what we've been focusing on. Rage and cost reduction on the shoulders. Gloves, rage and cost reduction. Rage and cost reduction. Rage and willpower. Rage and willpower cost reduction. The chest has a cooldown. I mean, the chest, I wish it had either cost reduction or transfer rate, but what it has is cooldown. It has good res amount, good health amount. I put it on. It's what I needed at the moment. It has a bit of wisdom as well, so it increases our chances for ailments. The helmet has status ailment chance. It has attack speed. Attack speed we don't care for. Wisdom. It has wisdom resistances. It has transfer time reduction between willpower and rage. Also very useful. Our pants cooldown reduction. I don't know if I would swap my pants right now for rage cost or transfer rate, but that's something we'll look at in the future. It has a lot of crit chance though. That's why I haven't swapped it. It has a lot of crit chance and cooldown reduction for now, and we need that cooldown reduction so that our warpath is below 4 seconds, right? It's at 3.7 right now. We want a quick warpath. We want a quick sovereign shout, so we might have to keep that cooldown reduction right there alongside the cooldown reduction from the chest piece. Hopefully we get a better cooldown reduction in the future for the chest piece. So everything here, like the shoulders and gloves, everything has rage and willpower cost reduction. And we focus on things like crit chance and wisdom. Crit chance and wisdom. You know, crit chance, ferocity, and wisdom is what we're looking for. Material damage is rend damage. It doesn't matter. It just has it. It's cool. And that 340 dodge just happens to be there and happens to account for 15% dodge. Doesn't matter too much, but it's there. We got straight up damage in the glove. Crit chance. This one. We got material damage, agility. If I find something nice, we could swap this out, but I also don't want to lose the ailment chance because it's already low enough. You know, it's down to 33. Our boots, I just focus on speed and hopefully something else, and this just happened to have 38% speed, ferocity, critical hit, and status ailment chance. So we got lucky with these. When it comes to the boots, I don't worry about health or resistance. You know, boots are heavy, whatever it is, the boots, I don't care about the stats on the boots. I just want them to have the speed, right? And then after the speed, then I hope that they have good stats. We got lucky with these ones. They have 104 ferocity, 81 critical hit, and 119 status ailment chance. We got lucky with those. The hammer, the weapon, it doesn't matter if I get a dagger, a sword, a mace. It just has to be a one-handed. And you know, we got lucky with this one. You know, good damage. You roll the 3 offensive 1. And you stick those ether gems on there. What is this one called? Eternal Amber. So we just stick those 3 Eternal Ambers in there so that we can have ether damage as our second highest damage. In here it shows us the highest, but since we're using Bleeding Edge turns all physical damage into rend. So we're actually using rend as first damage and then second ether. And in the shield we got really lucky as well. It has high block chance. It has high resistances, it has high block efficiency, it has material damage, it has wisdom, it has you know, that's it, material damage and wisdom. And we got the critical hit in there. And check this out, okay? I haven't shown you this one yet. The belt is a unique belt, nothing too special, except it's an O'Malley's lucky belt. It has plus 40% magic pine. It has some status element chance, some critical hit, a little bit of dodge in there. Actually, that's dodge percent, so if you don't actually have any dodge, it won't do anything. then plus 20 to all stats. But that 40% magic fine, it can actually go up to 50%. So ours is kind of on the low end, but it's still good, you know, plus 40% magic fine right there. Anyway, skills, very important. There's 3 skills in here that are very important. Your Sovereign Shout. Oh, you know what? We could duplicate the shout so that we can shout a lot like a maniac, dude. We could shout like a motherfucker. We could put a shout in here and another jump over here. Oh my god. We're gonna be shouting and jumping all over the fucking place in a minute here. We're gonna duplicate the shout and duplicate the freaking Wings of Ishmir. And we're gonna be shouting and jumping everywhere. Watch. That's what we're gonna do after we're done here. So the shout, guys. Grants buff. This is really important. These points are crucial. All these points on the shout, right? Grants buff to all resistances per enemy hit by the shout. That's a huge freaking number. You guys see that my resistances are at 79, 73, 74, right? When I'm fighting and buffed up and everything, this goes up to 10 and 11,000, okay? Between 9,000 something to 10 and 11,000. And it goes, everything goes to 75% reductions, because after you hit 70, to go higher than 70%, it's really hard. So even though I get like another 2 to 3,000 on each one, it still goes up to like 75. But that comes out of this point right here. Hold the line. Now, since it can itself increase duration of the buff granted by the skill, that means that shit is gonna last a long ass time. Now, restore stamina points when the skill is cast. That's gonna give us 2 stamina points, which we are using up with our Wings of Ishmir, because we remove the cooldown on the skill and instead it's using 1 stamina cost, which is being restored by the Sovereign Shout. With this 2 points being restored, and we're about to get a second shout, so things are gonna get a little bit crazy. Restore stamina right there. Increases the effectiveness of all buff granted by the skill and other skills. So every buff you're getting everywhere, damage buff, doesn't matter, whatever, every skill that's giving you a buff, like this one right here that's giving us a damage buff somewhere in here. Where is it? Increases damage dealt by yourself and allies in the area of effect of landing. This is an actual buff that will show up right above your skills, that is being increased, that's having its effectiveness increased by the shout, plus its duration increased by the shout. Okay, now it's also gonna increase, you know, a rage by every enemy hit and rage regen per hit while skill is effect, you know. So that's a buff that we gotta have being used at all times. And this right here, this 7% life leash buff is what's going to keep us alive. This is our instant heal here. Since we're doing so much damage, you know, we're hitting in the millions, right? Not every single time, but we can get there. We're hitting for like 500,000, 900,000, a million something, right? So this will be an instant heal no matter what you're doing. If you're attacking something, even if you get your life to 1, it'll full heal you just from this 7% right here, because it's 7% of all hits, you know. So you're gonna be full life, no problem. Then we got a movement buff here, 25%. This shit is listed right here. This is the basic though. This is without being without having its effectiveness increase, right? These are the base numbers of the buff that you're getting just from that shout. Now we got the Wings of Ishmir, increased flight speed, because you don't want to be in the air for 5 years, especially if you're running with a two-handed sword. If you decide to run the build with a two-handed sword, you don't want to be in the air forever, so flight speed increased, rage regeneration increased, or rage generation increased, grants a buff for each enemy hit on landing. Grants a buff, what the heck does that even mean? Like, what buff is it granting me? I don't know. I want it, I have it, I got it, you know. It happens, it shows up down there somewhere. I don't even know what it says. Actually, I can hover over it and find out later, but right now we just know it's some kind of buff, right? Now, increases chance to inflict elements on enemies. It doesn't even matter. I just didn't know where to put that point. Like, we don't have a cooldown anymore on the skill. Am I tanking? Do I need thread? Like, do I need Christians on the skill? No. So I just put elements so we can, I don't know, inflict some kind of ailments in the fight, right? Because we actually jump quite a bit. Now we removed the cooldown on the skill and made it cost stamina so that we can actually jump like a maniac, right? Like, we're over here like boom, 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 then shouting, and then we keep jumping, right? That's what's going on during the fight. And sometimes it bugs out and goes, not bugs out, like after you're buffed up multiple times, because the buffs keep stacking. You're gonna see when we go fight, you're gonna see it. We're gonna have buff stacks from shout and the jump that I'm gonna say like 5, 6, 7, and it's gonna be ridiculous. Like it's gonna be insane, right? So we have the shout right there, easy, no problem. We have this hook here that I never actually use, like I completely forget about it. So we're gonna be replacing that for another shout. But while leveling up, it came kind of useful, you know, it came in handy. You can reduce the cooldown, you can increase the range, and it pulls you toward the final target of the hook. So I would just be hooking myself towards the target. This has no cooldown right now, you know. It's because the cooldown reduction on the skill, plus the level of the skill, plus cooldown reductions on my gear makes this so it has 0 cooldown. We don't have any cooldown whatsoever on the skill right now, okay? Let me see, can we remove one of the cooldown reductions on it and still have no cooldown? No, it added a 1 second cooldown. Okay. Alright, so yeah, right now it has no cooldown. And as it keeps leveling up, it keeps reducing the cooldown. So eventually we'll be able to move that somewhere else, maybe on range or something, right? Anyway, I'm actually gonna remove it soon and put in another shout. And we put in this blood for blood just to test it out. I never used to use this point. I just decided, hey, you know, it looks like it might do some damage. Let's try it out. Let's put it in there, see what happens, right? I did not love it, but it did look like it was doing something. I don't even if you want to try it out, but I'm about to remove it for another Winds of Ishmir, right? Maybe even a shout. Can you imagine if we have 3 shouts? Maybe we can stack like 10 stacks of buffs of everything. We're gonna have to test that out. Then we have the Warpath. The Warpath, easy stuff, increased movement speed. You already have like movement buffs from this shit, so you're gonna literally you're gonna actually run across the screen so far, way faster than I'm about to do it right now, and it's gonna be way faster than this, okay? You're gonna run faster than that across the screen, so it gets hard to maneuver because you start hitting walls and everything. Now we got increased damage based on block chance. Do we need that? No, it's there. What else can we get? More damage, stun but added cooldown. I don't want a cooldown. That's what I'm trying to get rid of. Increased critical damage. Sure, if we actually hit something with it, that might be nice. Increased damage. So is it increased damage or increased damage on blocks? Since I have 100% block chance, I'm assuming that's giving me more damage than 20% and 20%, right? Or 20% or 20%. We got charge skill to channel, charge the skill to channel for longer, which means that's what let us hold down the skill and run for a really long time. If we don't have that, it just stops really fast. That's it. That's as far as it goes. So you need to get that. We have grants buff to all resistances for yourself and allies when charging. So this buff doesn't really last that very long. You'll get it while you're running basically, and once you start fighting, it runs out soon after that. It really doesn't matter too much, but since it's something we can get and it's one of the nicer things on the skill, then we grab it, right? Grants rage when hitting enemies. If you happen to hit some enemies with it, you need rage, you get some rage. Charge cannot be interrupted by crowd control effects. This rarely comes into effect, but if it did, you know, you're immune to it. There's really not much else here other than damage oriented things, block chance, more damage, critical damage, spawns a weird ally to help you fight. We haven't even tried that one. We might test it out, see what happens with that. Increased damage, create a shockwave at the end of the charge. Like all these things are just damage related. Doesn't really even come into play. You don't need that. You know what? We could even, if we needed to, we could actually have 2 Warpath. Oh my god, there's so many crazy things we could do. Can you imagine having 2 Warpath? Anyway, let's go duplicate this shit right now. Alright guys, so I realized we forgot to go over the actual Bleeding Edge skill, so we're gonna do that real quick. We showed it, but we didn't talk about it. One note that you have to take is Unstoppable Momentum. The fact that it increases the duration of the Bleeding Edge rotation for 4 seconds is just too good. You cannot ignore it. You gotta take it, right? 4 seconds is just so long. It's a long time. You need to grab that one. Now we have the axe follows you, astral orbit. It's important because you don't want to be having to recast every time that you move. You know, you want to be able to recast a few times, cast the skill a few times, and just move around the enemies. You gotta take that one. We are over here. This is our main damage node, right? Despotic Perseverance. This is why Bleeding Edge is so good. This node right here, it has to be taken. You cannot leave this node out either. All three of these nodes, very important. This one is the one that's going to be getting you those 10 million plus hits, right? Now, over here I have self-adjusting principle, which increases the speed of the rotation, which means that every cast is going to do a lot more damage a lot faster. It's going to have a lot more chances to inflict ailments. I didn't always use this. It's a great damage increase, but I didn't always use it. I was using Wicked Swing for increased area of effect while I was leveling up, but as soon as I started to hit those 180 floors and higher, it started to feel like I needed that extra damage, and that's when I swapped over to self-adjusting principle. And that's it. You know, you got your Bleeding Edge skill right there. That's all you need to know about Bleeding Edge. I'm going to show you the trees right here. This is the tree for the one-handed build with Stasis, which is the Which Time Cannot Heal. This is what it would look like if you didn't have Stasis. So you would take out the points from Which Time Cannot Heal and the point right here and just grab the tenants, so for more defenses. And if you were gonna run the build with a two-handed sword, this is what it would look like, right? We only changed a couple of points and grabbed some block over here. It's almost the same as one-handed. You see, we only changed a couple of points that got moved around to get them away from one-handed nodes and things like that, and grab that block right there by letting go of this will and rage power rage and willpower node that we had right there. Eventually you want to grab that back because you want that 150 rage, but for now just grabbing a little bit of extra block and making sure you're blocking, and that's it. I'm gonna leave you guys with a clip that happened right after I made the guide, where I picked up a sword and rolled it. Oh, actually, I'm gonna show you guys a little clip of a fight against a regular specialist mob that had 245 million life, and we killed it really fast, and you can see some 12 and 13 million hits with a 100 sword and shield setup. And we're gonna show you that clip, and then after that I'm gonna show you the clip rolling the weapon, and that's gonna be our closeout. I hope you guys like the guide. If you guys have any questions, just ask me down in the comments. Oh, you're knocked down right now. Is that 224 million or 245? I can't even tell. It looks like it is 245 million life. It is 245 million life on that target. Let's see. Let's compare these two weapons. 217, 328, 220, 356. It's almost no difference, you know, like it's only a tiny bit better. It does have 4% more crit damage and a little bit higher crit chance, but it loses the attack speed. It gains elemental status element, but we don't use elemental status. Dude, if that would have been like material or occult, I would have been all over that. It's still good though, you know, it would be great for somebody. Let's throw some money at it and see what happens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We can throw a little bit of gold in it. When it goes below 900,000, I'm gonna stop. Oh, what the fuck?